A pleasant Tuesday night, everybody, and welcome into the late shift, where it's official. Jeremy Plonk and Jeff Siegel with you as we take on 5 hot topics each week in horse racing. And Jeff, we're going to span the globe, as the great Jim McKay used to say at the head of Wide World of Sports this week.
That's right. The thrill of victory in Hong Kong for sure. And I saw a video of the fans who were watching the race, and they went absolutely crazy when their superstar, their hero, managed to win. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So that was good racing overseas. And it's time of the year where you get a lot of big races overseas, whether it's in Hong Kong or Japan or Australia, that don't conflict with North American racing that much. After the first year, it'll change. So we'll talk about what happened there, and Bob Bafford winning as usual at Los Alamitos, and a very popular horse down at Oaklawn that I'm kind of growing on me. I can tell you that. We'll talk about him. And then we've got a Triple Crown tracker with another coming three-year-old by Justify that looks like he might be the goods.
All right, let's get to it. Our 5 topics. We start off with number 1, and we are headed to Hong Kong for this one because last weekend were the Hong Kong International races, and in the Hong Kong Mile, the 3-time defending Horse of the Year in Hong Kong was in action. His name's Golden 60. It seems like he's won 60 in his career. He did it again for the 3rd straight year.
Golden 60 called upon now. The great horse to the outside, and he went whooshka. It is Golden 60 taking over. Shartin is electric. He's 3 on Beauty Eternal. Then came Namur. Next in then is Soul Rush, but it's Golden 60 for Hong Kong. 4 on Voyage Bubble. That's not a whip. That's a wand. That ride from Vincent is magic. Golden 60. The superstar has beaten Voyage Bubble and Namur.
He did it again. The 16th Group 1 win in his career for Golden 60. Just a legendary 8-year-old now. They talked about the jockey Vincent. Vincent Ho's been aboard him in almost every one of his career starts. And Jeff, what a model of international consistency just in Hong Kong, though. So he hasn't had the international exposure, but there's not a whole lot of people beating down the door to come and get him either there.
Well, 30 starts, 26 wins, 2 seconds and a third, managed to somehow finish off the board 1 time. But how do you like a horse that's won 26 races and has had 2 seconds? It means that if he can see you or hear you in the final furlong, you're not beating him. He's going to keep winning.
Right.
He is a son, by the way, of Medaglia d'Oro. So we have a little bit of a connection here in the States to this 8-year-old gelding, Golden 60. And he is a national hero. It's hard. I don't know if we get that here that often. Maybe since American Pharoah, maybe a little bit of Justify, but man, the whole country loves him and they follow him and they go bonkers when he wins, which is almost always. But he hadn't been out since 8 months, so you never know for sure if he's going to come back as well as he left. Well, he came back better. And this graphic says it all, Jeremy. He is amazing.
Look at the days off over the last 4 racing seasons. You talked about he had been away almost 8 months coming into the race last week, and 200-day layoffs have been the norm as part of the racing schedule in Hong Kong, as well as their deliberate stretching out of his campaign. And they've campaigned this gelding absolutely beautifully. One thing I felt that I was curious about, I went back and looked at each one of his 30 career starts, 9.8 horses per race in those starts over the course of his career. So he's taken on 8.8 rivals per race. These are not just lining up against 3, 4, 5 horse fields like we see in grade 1 races in the U.S. a lot of times and knocking off the same handful of horses. Golden 60's done it over the course of those 30 starts. When you talk about an 8-year-old still doing it at an upper level, I don't care what circuit you're talking about, you have to be impressed. And here in the States, in more recent vintage, we've seen horses like Lava Man do it on a big stage deep into his career. Prior to that, maybe go back to the 80s and John Henry. I looked at the careers of those horses. John Henry won 16 grade 1 races. It is now 10 grade 1 wins, I should say, 10 group 1 wins for Golden 60 throughout his career. So John Henry had more grade 1s and, he was still doing it at a high level, won 39 lifetime. Lava Man, on the other hand, won 7 grade 1s in his 17 career victories. So you're talking about a horse who's somewhere between Lava Man and John Henry in the annals of history, the way we can compare things here stateside.
Well, I go back even farther with Kelso and Forgo in the East. Popular geldings, they're few and far between now for whatever reason. They were sounder and maybe just better. I don't know. But one thing I will say about Golden 60, though, because every race he's ever run in, all 30, have been in Hong Kong, he's never stepped out of his comfort zone. And you might have some doubt or some criticism, like they've been protecting him all this time. It's hard to say how good he would be if he came to the States or went to Europe and ran. But I can tell you that Time Form, which grades horses on the same scale everywhere, they've been consistently assigning him Time Form ratings in the mid 120s on their scale, upper to mid 120s. And that would make him, if that were accurate, and I assume it's close as you can get, that would make him one of the best milers in the entire world, which is probably what he is based on his form. Too bad that he's probably not going to ever have a chance to prove that, other than if someone comes and gets him. From what I was reading, the DRF, there's probably 2 more races in his future. One, I think, in January, and a race called the Stewards Cup, and another one called the Champions Mile in April, both in Hong Kong. And then the owner says, that's it. I'm putting him away. And it'd be kind of a shame not to have tried be a little bit more ambitious. But there's no doubting how good he is. And like I say, he is a national hero in Hong Kong.
Well, Golden 60, you mentioned the sire, Medaglia d'Oro and the American Connection. The dam side is all American pedigree as well. If you look at the mares on the dam side, you're going back to My Charmer, who was the dam of Seattle Slew, Swedish Chant. You've seen some big American stakes races named after these outstanding race mares and brood mares. So there's a lot of American pedigree top and bottom on Golden 60. If that makes you feel like he can compete on an international stage on the bloodlines, to go with that turn of foot we saw. We love to see our turf milers with a turn of foot. What an acceleration that he had there in the stretch that we just saw in the Hong Kong Mile. So that's a look at a Far East superstar to kick things off. And interestingly enough, we just had a Far East superstar go into retirement, and they're going to have the retirement ceremony for Equinox this weekend at Nakayama Raceway. So as one steps off the stage, we still have this 8-year-old in the Far East from Japan to Hong Kong. Really some horses in the Orient that have caught worldwide attention in recent weeks. Let's go to our second topic this week on the big board. This is a little more familiar to American horse players. Bob Bafford won the Starlet again at Los Alamitos. That should come as no surprise. He did it with a filly named Nothing Like You.
3/16 from home, it's Nothing Like You, clear by more than 2 lengths. Great 48 second on the inside of Chatalis. Flynn's chances next. Now, Great 48 has ducked out and Chatalis was interfered with. It makes no difference to the winning result in the Starlet because Nothing Like You is coasting down the stretch at Los Alamitos to win in a breeze. Great 48 ended up a clear second.
7 straight wins now in the Starlet for the Bafford barn. We'll take a look at his 10 winners in that race overall in just a moment. But Jeff, your thoughts about this filly in particular?
Well, it took her 4 races to break her maiden, but since then she won her maiden by more than 6 at Santa Anita, came back and won a race called the Desi Arnaz. She was shortening up from a mile back to 7 furlongs, was able to win that. Numbers-wise, she continues to improve. This was a solid performance. She made the lead here, and even though she won the Desi Arnaz from off the pace, so she's pretty versatile. Daughter of Malibu Moon, and I like her. I didn't pick her in this race, and at the not the eighth pole, about the half-mile pole, I'm saying I made a mistake because she was just cruising on the lead. And Bob Bafford and Juan Hernandez are hitting, and I can exaggerate and say, oh, they win 70% of the time. That's not an exaggeration. That's what the recent stats are. I mean, it's almost impossible to beat when they team up. And Hernandez does ride a lot of Bob's best horses for sure, but I wouldn't ride anybody else if I were Bob right now, the way those two have hooked up. Inside speed, inside part of the track is generally not where you want to be at Los Al. It's deeper down there. She made the lead on inside. I'll give her extra credit for that. A little bit off the rail in the final furlong, but that's not the easiest way to win at Los Al. And she shrugged off Chatalis, who, of course, had won the Chandelier earlier this year, a legitimate filly. I think Nothing Like You will make her mark in the winter. I don't know whether she's going to be any kind of champion, but it might take a champion to beat her. That's how good I think she's gotten, winning by 5 1/4 lengths and with something left. Nothing like you winning the Starlet, as Bob Bafford always seems to do.
She is directly on the Santa Anita Oaks path now, and we'll see where that ends up come spring. Of course, Bafford can't compete in the Kentucky Oaks, so we'll see if she has to make a barn change to be a competitor in that race. Maybe one for the Black Eyed Susan race that Bafford won this past year, had the big favorite in there. Let's look at the Bob Bafford history in the Starlet Stakes, Jeff. We do this to kind of give some context to this winner because Bafford has dominated this race, but it's not exactly a Legion of Doom that he sent out there that have gone on to big success in their careers. You go back to horses like Habibti in 2001, Excellent Meeting in 1998, and arguably, I don't even think it's arguable, actually, Excellent Meeting is the best of the 10 on that list, and I don't even think it's close. So the Bafford winners since, 1998, you're going back 25 years now to get to 1998. In the last 25 years, his winners of the Starlet really haven't gone on to superstardom. Faiza was pretty good this year as a 3-year-old filly. Edith turned out to be a pretty good sprinter, but these haven't been just absolutely the big heavyweights from his barn.
No, and he's won 7 in a row, but all of those last 7 were at Los Alamitos. Excellent Meeting, of course, won hers when it was at Hollywood Park, and the race has gotten softer for whatever reason since the Hollywood Park closed, and they ran this race at the Los Al. So, and also, Bob's got so many young horses. He doesn't have to send out his best. He knows that, and it seems like there just aren't that many in California that can match up with him, and most don't even bother to try, although it wouldn't be bad to get grade 1 placing, but now this race is a grade 2. So I think it's a little bit off the radar, and I think as long as Bob's got 15 or 22-year-old fillies, a few of them are going to be really good, and among that group that he can pick and choose whichever he wants, and wouldn't be surprised if that streak continues on next year, the year after that, and then maybe forever, for all I know.
With the Colts, you're trying to get him to the Triple Crown, right? So you put a plan together for him. With the fillies at this age, you're trying to get them black type to make them worth a lot more money when they become broodmares down the line. The money for a filly is basically when her career's over as much as it is earnings on the racetrack in a lot of cases. So it's very important to divide up and look. Bafford's best went Breeders' Cup time. This is after Breeders' Cup, so maybe that's part of why the names you see that have won the Starlet for his barn over the years haven't always been his best. His best were running in Grade 1 company in the Breeders' Cup. Then he's got these as kind of either the later bloomers or the ones who took a little bit to get good. And like you said, nothing like you lost the first couple of races of her career. So she's the right kind of horse for that kind of race. And now she's a Grade 2 winner, and that's going to make her more valuable as a broodmare down the line. So mission accomplished, and all the boxes checked in that regard. Let's go to our third topic this week on It's Official. Twist and Shout. We're not talking about the Beatles. We're talking about a horse named Tano Twist. He won the Ring the Bell Stakes at Oaklawn Park with the new man on the mic. Here's Matt Ditterman's call.
And there's Tano Twist now. He's passing runners fast. He's trying to get outside, but Tano Twist is on the move at the top of the lane. Sir Wellington in the white blaze. He's got a narrow lead. Rivet struggling inside of him. And Tano Twist and Chris Landeros roaring from the back of the field, taking the lead and drawing clear for an emphatic win in the Ring the Bell Stakes. Tano Twist, he's back at Oaklawn, and he's made a statement today.
He's in really good form right now, Jeff. The tail of his 4-year-old year now, and Tano Twist for trainer Chris Hartman. Back-to-back stakes wins. He looked good at Churchill last time. He looked good here at Oaklawn. He's always been an Oaklawn horse for course, but do you think, like I think, that he could become more of a national player coming up this 5-year-old season?
Absolutely. I mean, he is a pro's pro. Here's a horse who's now won 9 out of 28 races with 6 seconds and 4 thirds. And he's still 4 years old. Sometimes, I mean, it looks like a record that you might have a 6 or 7-year-old gelding. He is a gelding, which is good, and he's run a lot of times, but he is not even remotely looking like he's feeling the effects of a busy couple of first 3 years of racing. He has never been better, and this race, he came against slow fractions. He was 12 lengths back after the opening quarter. He took the overland route, was very, very wide, swept by, ran by his foes like they were standing still. You'd expect a deep closer like this to kind of get up close home. He was by them at the 8th pole. I mean, that's how much he was accelerating from the top of the stretch to the wire. And that short 1/8 of a mile that he just blew them away. Must have turned in an 11 flat 8th there, and one going away by 5 lengths. He's had triple-digit buyers. He's always been a cut below the really good ones in the division. He's tried Cody's Wish. He's tried Gunite. He tried Skelly last year. Skelly, by the way, is back in training, and they'll probably hook up after the first of the year. He's never been quite that good, but I'm telling you, next year as a 5-year-old, he might be. I mean, he looks like a son of Practical Joke. And by the way, he's a son of Practical Joke with his style, a late running sprinter like that. And Tano Twist has a chance to be a very serious sprinter in the national scene in the sprint division next year, based on his recent form and especially this race.
And based on history, because there's a horse named Whitmore we all know for his success later in his career, but the lead up in the career to this point, Whitmore and Tano Twist look an awful lot alike. Like you mentioned, Tano Twist has been a cut below against the best horses, but he's getting good the older he gets. He got his first graded stakes win this year at age 4. Whitmore did not win a graded stakes until he was a 4-year-old. He did not win a grade 1 race until he was age 5. So we're talking about a horse who can develop from 4 to 5 and rise up the stakes ranks. Whitmore the same way, Oaklawn based. He was a Ron Moquette trainee, of course, and really a horse for course. A lot of people thought at Oaklawn until he just got better and better and better the older that he got. Whitmore won his first grade 1 at Saratoga as a 5-year-old. I would not be surprised if Tano Twist is capable of something like that in the summertime this year. Maybe Churchill Downs handicap on 7 furlongs on Derby Day. This is the kind of horse who could maybe be a grade 1 winner here in the next 5-6 months. And then, Whitmore won his first grade 1 at 5. He didn't win the Breeders' Cup until he was 7, the Breeders' Cup sprint. So these good sprinters, this is what we used to see in the sprint ranks, right? I mean, we were used to Kona Gold and horses like that, like sprinters who stuck around, and there's good, tough geldings that were in the Breeders' Cup sprint. There was a long gap between, those kind of horses and Whitmore, but we could have one here in Tano Twist. I think he's really that talented. He was good for Brett Calhoun early in his career. Chris Hartman's had him for the past couple of years, and this is a horse who's going to make some noise. And I'll say right now, I really do think the Churchill Downs handicap at 7 furlongs could just be his coming out party on a national stage in one of those big time races, grade 1 on the Derby under.
Let me
keep an eye on Tano Twist. This is a sprinter we both like.
Yeah, and he actually ran in that race last year. He had the misfortune of catching. He finished 3rd, which is good. Who beat him? Cody's Wish. Who was 2nd? Hoist the Gold. Yeah. Salty, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and we don't have Cody's Wish anymore, right? I mean, as sometimes happens is, the attrition in a division. Some of the brilliant horses are stepping aside, going to the breeding shed, and some of these tough geldings and older horses, they can rise to the top. Right? Yep. I've got a feeling we're going to hear a lot more from Tano Twist, hopefully, knock on wood, throughout the course of this year. Now, that's talking the older division, but this time of year, we're thinking 3-year-olds, and our Triple Crown trackers dialed in on yet another 2-year-old by Justify. We're going to take a look at Valentine Candy, a winner of the Advent Stakes on opening weekend at Oaklawn Park. Maybe not the first step to the Arkansas Derby when you think 5.5 furlongs, but this one could go a bit longer based on what we saw.
Valentine Candy is cruising to the front runners, and Valentine Candy and Ramon Vasquez have taken a short lead. Molly's Town back in second, left behind, and now Valentine Candy is opening up. He has been given this field the slip today, and he's opening up while getting to the rail. He's 4 lengths clear with a big burst of energy, and the son of Justify making a statement here in the Advent Stakes. He robs by a half dozen lengths.
What a year for Justify with his 2-year-olds. Of course, Just FYI won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Hard to Justify won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. The best horse in Europe right now is a horse named City of Troy for Aidan O'Brien by Justify. Buku was the Jessamine winner on the turf, the 2-year-old fillies at Keeneland. Just a fabulous crop of 2-year-olds he's got this year. Add Valentine Candy maybe to the list.
maybe this was his best race. His previous form was good. He's never routed, and he's by. And again, you put it out 5.5 with that turn of foot. If he can take that kind of turn of foot and project it over 2 turns, I don't see why he can't be among the very best ones in Arkansas on that circuit. Valentine Candy was produced by a Candy Ride mare named Tastes Like Candy, and of course Candy Ride will get your router, and Tastes Like Candy herself was a very good second in the previously discussed Hollywood Starlet back in her day, back in 2013, and she's a young mare, has only had one other foal, so I mean, who's to say? And by the way, a really good family. Second dam by AP Indy, third dam by Irish Tower was Speed, but she was a half sister to X-Born and Expel, 2 really top class horses. So I don't see any reason why this horse won't route. Asmussen will certainly give him a chance next time out. I don't know if it's the Southwest or something else, but he's on my radar. I can tell you that he is getting better. And, again, the Justifies get better. We know that. And he's going to get better as well. Valentine Candy, put him down on your list.
4 or 5 chances at Oaklawn to make your hay towards the Triple Crown Trail. I mean, from the Smarty Jones to the Southwest, to the Rebel to the Arkansas Derby, there will be some options for this Justified Colt Valentine Candy. Also on our Triple Crown tracker this weekend, we're going to let you know about 2 races coming up in the coming days. Friday night at Remington Park in Oklahoma City, they're going to run the $300,000 Springboard Miles Stakes. You got shippers for Asmussen, Cox, Doug O'Neill. They've got to take on Keeneland's Bowman Mill Stakes winner Glenn Gary and what looks to be a good 9-horse field. For more on that field, be sure to check out Express Bet and First Bet's blog section, where I have a Meet the Contenders blog. You can learn a little bit about each of the horses entered in the Springboard Mile on Friday. And also this weekend, the Japanese Road to the Kentucky Derby has a prep race with Kentucky Derby qualifying points. And if you say, well, what's the Japan race really going to have any say, is a race that Derma Sotogake came out of last year before ending up in the Run for the Roses. So keep it an eye on Japan this weekend, and also Remington Park on Friday night as part of our Triple Crown tracker. Jeff, we're heading to the Far East a lot here in the last few weeks.
Well, why not? They come over here and have done quite well in the last several years. We saw what they did at Del Mar in the Breeders' Cup a couple of years back, and we were not wrong about Derma Sotogake. We both liked him in the Derby last year. I know he finished nowhere, but his race in the Breeders' Cup Classic shows us that he is top class, world class, and you never know. I mean, nothing that Japan sends out would surprise me. And, Equinox, I mean, all he is maybe the best horse in the world. So, although retired now, but you got to respect anything that comes from Japan now.
Yeah, even more so, I think, right? Derma Sotogake ran 6th in the Derby and had a lot of trouble in that race at the start and still ran well. But again, like you said, what he did in the Breeders' Cup underscored his ability and really gave legitimacy, I think, to people who are Kentucky Derby handicappers looking forward. I think we're going to have to respect these Japanese horses a little bit more. That if you were skeptical last year and say, my first cross out, some handicappers say my first cross out in the Derby was Derma Sotogake because I'm not playing a Japanese horse coming over here for the Derby. He ran well enough and then underscored that in the Breeders' Cup to make you say, I've got to handicap him now. You might still not like a particular horse. Not every horse who comes over here will be as talented as that one, but maybe we'll find one that's more talented. You've got to handicap them now. I think that's the bottom line of what we'll learn. We'll see if we can get one from Japan this weekend. Now, this Star of Tomorrow that we have to wrap up our show is not going to be on the Triple Crown Trail because 1, it's a filly, and 2, she's 3 years old. Her name is Nick Stiles. She's only run twice in her career. She was in a first level allowance race at Gulfstream Park a few days ago, and Pete Aiello will show you how she
Nick
romped
Style
home.
has the lead to the top of the stretch. The half was 45 seconds flat. On the outside, Divine Connection is 3 wide. In between horses, Gervin Girl still right there. Major Price tries to get a rally together. Off the turn in the stretch drive. Nick Style, she's got something in the tank here. Junior Alvarado sends her on with the task, and she's 7 in front. Principe is a huge price trying to rally for a slice from between horses. Gervin Girl outside Divine Connection, but Nick Style comes back impressive. She won by 8.
Maybe one of the best horses for trainer Ralph Nix since he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies with Caledonia Road back about a decade or so ago. Looks like he's got a pretty good one on his hands if she can stay healthy.
I made her a best bet for Express Bet readers based on not this race. Obviously, I didn't think she'd run this good, but I went back and watched the video of her 2-year-old race way back in May of her 2-year-old season, and she did the same thing going 4.5. She just laughed at him. Never was asked to run at all. Eased up in the final 16th of a mile. And then in an interview after the race, Ralph said that she had a lot of issues, and then they brought her back, and they had to stop on her again. So she's off a year and a half. And we had some workouts on her on XBTV that would have indicated to me anyway that she was ready. And boy, was she ever. A daughter of Uncaptured and out of America by Street Sense. And Ralph said that I don't think she's just a sprinter. I mean, I think she'll go a mile. Well, the way she won this way, she certainly should. She's got good quickness leaving the gate. She switches off and cruises midway. And then when you chirp to her and turn her loose at the top of the stretch, she explodes again. She gives you that second move. I mean, no one's going to get in front of her going around. And if she can do that two turning, what she just did here going 3/4, who's to know and who's to say if Nick Style might not be one of the better fillies next year during her 4-year-old season? She's still got all her conditions or another condition before she'll handle stakes. Ralph said he's not going to run her back that quick. He'll take his time, which is smart. I think Nick Style has a chance to be a very, very significant member of the older filly and mare ranks next year, sprinting or routing.
She'll get some chances at Gulfstream during the long championship meet that goes all the way to about the 1st of April. Also, Tampa Bay Downs has a good program for the fillies and mares on the main track there during the same time of year in the first quarter of the year. So if Ralph wants to get her a little bit of time now and then bring her back towards the start of spring, you've got those options. And then, of course, you got some big ones at Keeneland coming up in April then, where you could go short or long as the horses start to, snowbird in reverse and come back north in the springtime.
Would you make her the winner book favorite for the Madison then?
That's the kind of race we're talking about. Yeah, that's kind of what what you might want to be looking at, a race along that line. And then, of course, Churchill Downs has got, we talked about the Churchill Downs handicap. They've got the Derby City Distaff that raced the Goodnight Olive, got trapped down on the rail this year. So, yeah, those are the kinds of races that, the Derby horses are really easy, right? We know first Saturday in May, third Saturday in May, and then the 5 weeks later in June. And but with these older horses, the calendar's a little bit different, and you kind of look at some different targets and goals, but some of them do match up with the Triple Crown races, like those big races on Derby Day. So yeah, the Madison would be a great race for her. She turns out to be a good 4-year-old sprint filly. If they want to go long, who knows what she could do? The world's her oyster at that point. And a lot of one-turn races are going to be run in New York this year, at Aqueduct with an extended meet there. So they may not have to stretch around 2 turns to get to some of the bigger races.
90 buyer speed figure in this race. Yeah, 90 buyers for speed figure, and she wasn't even trying, so she's already right up there with her.
Nick's Style, NIC''S, Nick's Style. Put that one down in your stable mail, and we'll see where she returns for trainer Ralph Nix. That will wrap up our 5 topics on the big board this week. We started off going to the Far East, where the Hong Kong Mile was the 10th Group 1 win for Golden 60. The 8-year-old did it for the 3rd year in a row. Bob Bafford's latest Starlet winner is a filly named Nothing Like You. The 10th time he's won the Starlet, 7 years in a row. Twist and Shout, Jeff and I both love who could be the next coming of Whitmore. Tano Twist, one to watch for trainer Chris Hartman after winning with a deep close in the Ring the Bell Stakes at Oaklawn Park for a 2nd straight stakes win. Our Triple Crown tracker has another offspring of Justify to watch. It's Valentine Candy, winner of the Advent Stakes at Oaklawn Park. Also teased you towards the Springboard Mile at Remington and the Japanese Road to the Kentucky Derby, which fires up this weekend as well. And our star of tomorrow, we just mentioned Nick's Style, the 3-year-old filly about to turn 4. We'll see what she can do in the filly and mare sprint or the Distaff division as a 4-year-old next year for trainer Ralph Nix. Jeff, that's going to wrap up everything on the podcast for our main topics. Every once in a while, we like to throw in a little bonus topic. And I got to admit, between preparing for this show, the writing that I do, the research and everything, I also have had my head in the transfer portal. We're big-time college football and basketball fans here. The transfer portal is just on fire right now. I think over 3,500 kids have put their name in the transfer portal to leave their college football team and just go willy-nilly anywhere else they want to go. And all the people in college football, the fans, the administrators, administrators, the coaches have to get used to this way of life where nothing is written in stone anymore. If you want to get up and go, you can get up and go. Whether or not you believe that's the right thing or the wrong thing for college sports, what I want to talk about is how this is just regular day life for a horse trainer, right? There are no 4-year contracts. There are no senior years. When you get a horse in your barn as a 2-year-old, at any point in time, that horse could hit the transfer portal if an owner wants to. It's just the life of a trainer.
No, I mean, there's no guarantees. There's no, you don't have contracts. You can get fired tomorrow if the owner feels like it. I don't usually, I mean, I can't even remember the last time I actually fired a trainer. It might have been like in the 70s or something. I just don't recall that. That was when I had all those horses with Team Valor. Barry Irwin, my partner, he did the dirty work. He was the bad cop. I was the good cop.
Yeah.
You know, it worked out great for me. But you're right about that. I mean, I've seen some trainers. Rich Strike just came to mind. I mean, you don't really need an excuse. You just, sometimes if you don't, I always felt that. I did enough research.
Right? White Barrio hit the transfer portal. They were worried about Staffy Joseph and whether or not he'd be eligible to run horses here or there.
Right.
Sent him to Rick Dutrow. Next thing you know, he's in the winner's circle for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Jeff, do the fans out there, do they know how the process works? And I want to talk to you as an owner. Let's say you've got a horse in your barn. John Sadler trained some of the horses you have in Southern California. Let's say hypothetically you wanted to move your horse for John Sadler. How's the process work?
I would just go to him and explain why. I mean, mostly John doesn't need my horse. That's for sure. I don't think he'd care one bit. It's either that or Flightline. Which one do you want? All right. You if you're friendly with the trainer and you figure you wanted to try something different, you leave on good terms. It's okay. Again, I don't recall ever having to do that. Sometimes if I really want to make a switch, I send them out to Northern California and use that as an excuse if I had to. I'm just changing venues here. I want to go a little easier, or I want to send them back east or something. So that's how I would do it. But I have never had never had really the opportunity to do that. So I don't know. It's hard. But other trainers, they have to blame somebody. Other owners, I should say, they have to blame somebody, and it's usually the trainer. So not the horse's fault. So it happens, for sure. And by the way, you're talking about the transfer portal. You talk about it. It's a new way of life. Do you know that Notre Dame and Oregon, they don't even recruit quarterbacks anymore? They don't. They just pick off the best. They can do it. They have the NIL to do it. Why take a freshman and develop him for 2 or 3 years when you can get a 5-year guy for some money? Or Notre Dame's taken 2 from the ACC. I mean, your quarterback from Oklahoma is on his 3rd school. He'll take over for Nix and do well up at Oregon. Gabriel. So I mean, it's changing. I mean, and the real. By the way, I want to tell you something. Maybe you don't even know this, but in California now, a lot of these low-level Division I schools. I mean, talking about Mountain West schools and WAC schools, and their coaches are going out recruiting kids, saying, "Look, come to my school for 2 years. We will get you ready to jump into the high Division I. If you go to a Division I school now, you may not play. You'll play for us. You'll get good tape, game tape ready, and then after 2 years, God bless you. We'll send you on your way. We'll find the best place for you." It's a different kind of recruiting now. It's almost like going to the minor leagues in baseball and then working your way up. College football has changed overnight, and I don't know about how a lot of people really realize it, but it has.
And we're so averse to change in horse racing because we're insular, and that's what we look at and what we focus on. But everything's changing around us in many, many ways. So this is just another example. And part of the reason why we bring it up in this podcast, just to shed a little different perspective, but how it kind of ties back to what we're doing. A lot of sports are dealing with a lot of change. And we're talking about major TV contracts, streaming services. The Dodgers just signing Ohtani for $700 million, $680 million of it deferred to like 20 years from now. I mean, like, just the way the business is conducted is different. It's just different in a lot of ways. So buckle up, babe. We got change coming in horse racing. It's here. It's happening around us in every other field that we follow. Just don't think that because something's going different in horse racing that the sky's falling, because it is everywhere. Change is everywhere. Change can be bad. Change can be good. There are definitely reasons why the sky is falling in horse racing. I'm not pumping sugar into everybody. We've got our problems, no question about it. But change is how you get out of those problems too. So you have to embrace some change. And I think that's part of the message of, what we talk about with being a college football fan, a Major League Baseball fan, whatever you want to talk about. Change is here. It's different. The NBA just played an in-season tournament the other day that they've never played before. A different look. The Lakers, heaven forbid, are going to hang a banner in the rafters at Staples Center for winning an in-season tournament that didn't exist 2 weeks ago. So
I think the NBA asked to do that. The NBA asked them to do that because they want to pump up this tournament that nobody really paid attention to. I know, but I'll tell you one thing about changes in horse racing, though, and that is, you look at these massive purses at Oaklawn and Kentucky, and they're just, they dwarf what we have here in California. And there is some concern here that some of the horses that have been ticketed for California, they're always going to say, I'm just going to go somewhere else where the money's stronger, and it could hurt our sport here in California. I don't know what the solution is, but that could be a
get slow. You gotta get on your politicians out there. That's the deal. You gotta get slots.
It's not even the politicians. It's the Indian reservations that they've got. They got everything tied up here, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that too much. We'll just have to enjoy what we have and look forward to a great racing and enjoy it even with the lesser purses.
The California horse player is still the most important horse player in America. The numbers suggest it. The numbers.
Yeah.
Yes, the numbers show it. So California is extremely important to the entire national landscape of horse racing, no doubt about it. Whether or not you're talking horsemen and purses in the Southern California circuit, we need horse racing in California because the rest of the country needs California bettors betting their product. There's no question about that. California still has a major flex when it comes to betting handle, not only in state, but around the entire country. We need those players on the West Coast. So you got to have a strong and healthy horse racing industry out West. Jeff and I will be back next week to take on 5 more hot topics on It's Official. But between now and then, circle your calendar for Friday when we will have the First Call podcast for you to preview 8 weekend stakes races. I'm sure we'll hit some of the Friday night races at Remington Park and also some big weekend stakes from around the country. The 2-mile Allen Jerkins. Horses are already starting to warm up for that one on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. To be sure, they'll go 2 miles on the grass at Gulfstream this weekend. Tropical Turf Pick 3 off to a pretty good start this weekend. So the new bet at Gulfstream. Be sure to check that out when racing resumes there for a full week of racing this weekend at Gulfstream. On behalf of Jeff Siegel and everybody with First Technologies, I'm Jeremy Plonk.